All right, and moving on to the next question. What was your favorite Halloween costume? Great question. I used to dress up a ton as a kid, when I was like really little, and then even all the way up until like middle school. I kind of stopped dressing up once I got to like high school. I always had done little things over the years, like kind of, putting on makeup or just wearing something crazy, but I had never really done like a full-on costume for Halloween. But I will say two of my favorite costumes I've ever done. One, as a really young kid, at the time the X-Men movies had just come out and were really big. Obviously, I was like always a comic book fan, so I was always a fan of just the characters from the comics and the X-Men and Wolverine and everything. But I dressed up for Wolverine one year, but I sort of went with the movie adapted version. So, I didn't do like the blue and the yellow classic costume, but I kind of modeled it after like Hugh Jackman's appearance in the movies. So I did like, all the different multi-layered like jackets, and I did have like a pair set of like Wolverine toy claws, and my mom and we went out and got like prosthetic sideburns and glued those on, and we kind of styled my hair, as best we could to sort of emulate like the Wolverine hairstyle. So I'll throw a picture of that up. But that came out really good. I was super proud of that. Going out trick-or-treating, I literally felt like I was Wolverine. So definitely that one. And then this one was a little more, not recent, but as I was older, I used to have really long hair. I was letting my hair grow out for like a long time. And naturally, because my hair is so thick and coarse, when it was really long, it kind of had like a natural sort of frizzy like waviness to it. And because I had like a bunch of rock t-shirts and flannels and like aviator sunglasses, I didn't really know what I was going to do for Halloween one year. And I was kind of just thinking, because I had a Guns N' Roses t-shirt, I think is what it was. I was like, oh, well, what would be kind of cool if I just throw on my flannel and throw some shades on. If I could find one of those cool like top hats, I was like, I would look like pretty close to Slash, so that's what I did. I just, like I said, threw on some shades, got the flannel rock t-shirt, and then I went and got one of those cool top hats. So I'll throw up a picture, but I thought I had it nailed down pretty good. I was like, this is pretty cool as far as a costume goes. So that's another one of my favorites for sure. So great question. Thank you for that. All right, moving on to the next question. What is an unforgettable memory related to my music? Great question. So the most unforgettable memory when it comes to my relationship with music, it's probably the memory I hold most near and dear to my heart. It's my first performance I ever did with my best friends. Shout out to Mike and Brandon once again. It's the first show that we ever put on, and it was at this little sort of bar in Old Town Arvada, Colorado. And this was back in like maybe 2011. We had been working on music for like a few months, and we had finally gotten a decent collection of songs together where we thought, let's do something with this. And we had sort of networked and made connections with, people who knew people, and we found that this place, the Dino, they were gonna let us put on a show. And it's funny because, we all invited all of our families out and our friends and, everybody to come and see the show. And it's funny because at the time, I hadn't even really told like a lot of my family and people that I was like even starting to rap or write music or do anything with music. So I'm sure it was kind of like, what the hell? Like it kind of came out of nowhere. But between all of us inviting as many people as we could and knew, we had such a huge turnout that we had that place literally packed. And, we probably made that place a lot of money that night. So, we were able to perform with a couple other artists that sort of opened for us. And, we were kind of like the headline act or whatever of that evening. We got up there and we just had that place just going crazy, obviously because it was all of our friends and family that showed up to support us. But I'll never forget that night. I truly felt like I had already accomplished my dream. I was already living the dream, just being up there with my best friends, doing what we loved and what I was passionate about, and just having the time of our lives. Like that was, I'll always just cherish that memory. So yeah, definitely a memory of my first performance ever. So thank you for that question. All right, coming up on the last two questions, I'll kind of answer back to back. What is your creative process, and how do you come up with a flow? So being that, one kind of intertwines with the other, I'll kind of answer them at the same time. So my creative process, it kind of varies, honestly, song to song, right? Every song is different, so my creative process for every song is different. There's certain ideas I'll have, for months in advance before I even work on the song. Sometimes there's an idea I'll come up with on Monday, and then I'm like, oh, I have this idea, I gotta start working on this right away, and then I start writing the song on Wednesday or Thursday. So it just depends, really. There's no specific creative process, but I will say I do have sort of like a general process that I have when it comes to working on songs. First off, I just listen to a ton of music. Like, I don't really do a lot of podcasts. Sometimes I'll listen to like interviews and stuff by artists that I'm interested in, but I'm constantly just listening to music. If I'm in the car and I'm out and about, I'm listening to music. Or if I, on the rare occasions I go and like actually work out or something, I'm listening to music. If I'm just at home chilling, or I'm making something to eat in the kitchen, listening to music. So I listen to a lot of music constantly. So I'm always kind of thinking from a creative standpoint, like, oh, I like what they said in this song. What if I kind of said something similar? If it's a rock song, I'll be like, oh, I really like that hook. I wonder how I could, maybe say something similar, but obviously in a hip hop record or whatever. So I listen to a ton of music, and I'm always just, again, I'm kind of like this sponge for like inspiration. I can get an idea from anything and anywhere. So that's first. Again, sometimes the inspiration, or just like the general idea of the song, it can come from a number of influences and inspirations. Typically, it's hard for me to like sit down and say like, I'm going to write a song about ABC or XYZ. I honestly rarely do that. Typically, the ideas come to me when I'm really not trying to think of an idea. It'll just kind of hit me all of a sudden, like, oh, write about this. And I'll be like, oh, great idea, write that down. I have a little note app in my phone, so I'm constantly putting little ideas and lines and concepts down in there to help me remember for later. So that's a big help for me as far as my creative process. But anyways, more specifically, like, let's say I already have an idea for the song, concept wise, and I've already decided on the beat, or I've already picked an instrumental, or maybe someone sends me a beat or something like that. So what I will do is I will just listen to it over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. So sometimes till you get sick of listening to it and you're like, oh my God, I'm tired of this. But that's a big part, is just, you might pick something out of the beat or out of the song the 100th time you listen to it that you didn't hear the 50th time you listen to it, or the 20th time you listen to it. So listening to it over and over again helps a lot, because then it becomes like embedded in your brain. It sort of becomes part of like your day-to-day sort of psyche. So that helps me a lot. And then when I sit down to write, what I'll do is I'll typically just freestyle or mumble like some gibberish words, just to try to help me find a flow, help me find a melody or a rhythm or some kind of structure to the verse. Typically for me, it's harder to come up with hooks and choruses and bridges. I find those more difficult for me personally to write than it is to write the verses. So being that those are more challenging for me, I try to work on those first before I come up with the verses, but not always. It just depends. Because if the verse is just coming to me, sometimes I can't write it down quick enough. I can't get it out of my head fast enough. So sometimes I have to start with the verses, and then I'm like, I'll just figure out the chorus or the hook or whatever later. But typically I try to figure out the chorus or the hook first, because I'm like, okay, now the hard part's out of the way, I just gotta write the verses. But like I said, typically I'll just kind of mumble or freestyle some gibberish just to kind of figure out the rhythm or the flow of the verse, or what I want to say, how I want to say it, certain words that come to mind. I do a lot of like word association exercises when I'm writing. Like, let's say I'm writing about a particular topic or a subject. I try to think of as many words as I can that pertain to that thing or that topic or that subject as I can, and I just try to have like a little word toolbox that I can go back to and pull from. And then obviously comes the actual writing process. So once I have like a clear kind of blueprint, like a skeleton outline of, okay, I want the song to start out with the verse and then the hook and then the second verse. Or it might even be, okay, I'm going to have the hook first and then the first verse, etc., etc. I spend a lot of time and effort into writing a song. I don't just come up with it in like an hour. That would be nice. But sometimes I could work on a song up to a couple weeks, sometimes even a couple months before the final product. And the other thing about writing is there's been times where I'll write almost an entire song with a hook and a verse or whatever. I'll write like maybe over half of the song, and then I'll just be like, you know what, this isn't it. This it doesn't feel right. There's something about it that just doesn't, is just off, or I'm just not feeling it, and I'll just trash it. I'll be like, scrap it, start again from square one. Start from scratch. That will happen a lot, honestly, which is just, it comes with the territory. But I try to just write as much as I can. I like to honestly write more than I need to. That way, for me, it's easier to just write a ton and then try and trim it down versus not having enough to write. So I try to just have an abundance of material, and then I'll go through it later and be like, okay, maybe I don't need this part, or this part's kind of redundant. I'm kind of like saying the same thing in this line or whatever. And so it's easier for me to kind of consolidate and scale things down in that sense. And again, it just goes back to the trial and error. I might write an entire song with verses and hooks, and then when it comes time to actually record it, you might hate the way that it sounds recorded. You might be like, oh, well, now that I actually have it recorded and I'm able to play it and hear it back, it's not sounding like what I had envisioned in my head. So then that's a whole nother process of figuring out, okay, well, is it the way I'm delivering the verse? Is it, the way I'm singing on the chorus? Like then you have to fine tune what it is you like and don't like about the rough draft of it once you're kind of satisfied with the general outline of the song. And then the nice thing that I like to do is I'll record a rough draft of a song, and then I like to sit with that. Even if I'm really, really sure about it and confident in it, I like to just sit with that rough draft for maybe like a week. I'll just listen to it over and over and over again. And again, I try to take myself out of the perspective of the writer and the creator of the song, and I try to just listen as a fan, as if someone else wrote it. And what I find is when you have the ability to listen back to a rough cut of your song over and over again, you're going to end up singing the hook differently than you did when you originally recorded it, or you're going to recite the verses differently the 20th time different than you did when you first recorded it. Obviously that just comes from being more comfortable with it, living with it a little longer. But through that process, you're going to incorporate more character, more personality, more charisma into it. So I try to just take those notes and be like, ooh, okay, now I know how I want to deliver the verse differently, or now I know how I need to sing the hook. So then I'll go back and make whatever adjustments that I feel necessary. And then obviously the recording process is a whole nother story. It's a matter of experimentation. Again, it's a case by case with every song. Some songs you might need to add more vocal layers. Some songs I like just a super raw, stripped down, not a lot of production going on in the song. So again, it varies project to project. It's all about listening to the song. The song, more times than not, will tell you what it needs. It'll tell you if something's missing, or if you're not sure. You can never do too much to a song. In most cases, sometimes I feel like the song is never done. Even when it's finally finished and done, and it's released, I'll still listen back to it and be like, oh, I could have done this differently, or ooh, I should have added this, or maybe I should have taken this part out, or whatever. So my advice would be like to do as much as you can in the recording and the production stages of a song, and then you can always scale it back. You can always take something out. You can always turn the volume on something down or up, or make whatever adjustments you need to. It's always easier to do that when you have a bunch of stuff on the song, and it's easier to take little pieces and little layers out one at a time. But it's really hard if you don't have a lot of the song going on and you're kind of like, oh, I don't know what to do with it. I really, this is all I had in mind for the song. Well, then it's like, then you might have to step out of your comfort zone or experiment. It's all about experimenting and being like, oh, well, you know what? What if this isn't really in my comfort zone, but what if I put 2 vocals of me singing, maybe like a high one and then more like a monotone one, or it's all about just experimenting with your voice too, and the writing and the delivery of things. So it can be a long process, at least for me personally. Another part of the process is, showing your work to other people. Obviously, you don't want to just show a bunch of people, but, show it to those people that are really close to you, that like they're not going to just, tell everybody about the song. Or let's say you send them a rough copy of the song, that they're not going to just send it to everyone or, upload it to something. So obviously just showing people that you trust and value their opinion to give you constructive criticism back, even if they just say something like, yeah, it sounds great, I love it, that'll at least give you confidence to be like, oh, okay, well, it does sound good the way it is. But you always want to be open-minded to, maybe changing something. The song is constantly evolving from the time it's conceived as an idea in your head to the time that it's released. It's constantly evolving, so just keep that in mind. But again, a lot of times you might get some feedback that, it's always healthy to get a different perspective on the song. Again, like a second opinion. You might get some feedback and you're kind of like, oh yeah, okay, I didn't think about that before. Oh yeah, that is a good suggestion. I was thinking of that, but I wasn't 100% sure, so you get that reinforcement. So I'd say showing other people is a good part of the process. And for me personally, when I know a song is pretty close to being ready, or it is ready to be released, I always look for that factor of surprising yourself. At least for me, I'll always have that moment when I'm making a song where it sort of exceeds my expectations. It comes out better than I had envisioned it. And I'll surprise myself in the sense that you kind of have like an out-of-body experience, and you're so impressed and proud of the work that you've done that it kind of takes you back, like, oh wow, like that's me, I did this song, like I recorded that, I sang that, or whatever. So I always try to wait for that moment, and then that lets me know, like, okay, we're getting closer, we're in the right direction, we're on the right track. And that feeling is always very satisfying, because I feel like if you're not getting that out of your own music, then really it's not going to matter if other people listen to your music or not. You got to get some kind of satisfaction out of it just for yourself. So, and then obviously the final process of the song is releasing it and putting it out. And Me, I don't release something until I'm like, okay, I've thrown everything that I can at this song. I've tried every little different angle and approach, and I tried to do it this way, I tried to do it this way, and you know, I literally don't know what else I can do to make this song good. As long as you give 110%, you know, effort in trying to make the song as good as it can get. What you don't want to do, and this can be hard for a lot of artists, but if you obsess and you dwell and you second guess yourself, then you're like, this song's not ready. I need to work on it some more. I need to work on it some more. It's not quite ready yet. And you just turn into what they call like a perfectionist, which to me is just another word for like, you know, they're not confident in putting it out as it is. I mean, don't get me wrong, I am a perfectionist to some degree, but it gets to a point where you're like, okay, there's nothing really else I can do to this record that's going to make it better than what it's going to be. And if it's at that point where it's not coming out the way that you envisioned it, then maybe you need to just, again, go back to the drawing board, you know, rethink what you're doing with the song, start from scratch, you know, try something else. Because just holding on to the song the way that it is and never doing anything with it, to me, that's almost worse than putting it out and then being like, that song didn't quite come out the way I wanted it to, but, you know, at least it's out there. At least you gave it a shot. It's not like that's the last song you'll ever put out. It's not the end of the world. Just move on to the next song, you know? So, I mean, I have tons of music that I've released that I look back now and I'm like, I probably would have done things differently now, but oh well, you know, spilt milk. Oh, and as for the coming up with the flow portion of that question, again, it just always comes back to what you would want to hear as a fan, you know, as a listener. What's going to keep the listener interested, engaged? What's going to make the song more dynamic, more unique, more interesting? And again, it's a case-by-case thing. You got to listen to the song. You got to listen to the music, to the beat. What is it telling you to do? Because a lot of the times the music and the beat will guide you in the right direction. Does it require me to kind of rap a little faster at this part? Does it require me to rap more slow, more down tempo right here? You know, do I need to kind of sing on the verse? You know, you just got to listen to the music. And again, just experiment. Sometimes I'll go into a song knowing, ooh, I want to do a bunch of different flows on this. Or sometimes I'll go into a song like, oh, I don't know how I'm going to rap on this. And you kind of just find out in the moment as you rap to it. So it's I know it's kind of a complicated answer, but also just when I'm not writing, if I'm just listening to music by other artists, sometimes I can't help but like freestyle over the song. So a lot of the times that's how I come up with flows. I'll try something out over another artist's song and then I'll be like, ooh, I really like that. That was cool what I did there. Let me try and remember that for a song in the future. Also, what I like to do is what's going to give the song replay value. You know, some of my favorite rappers or favorite rap songs, if the flow is interesting and different enough throughout the song, that's what makes the song so great to go back and listen to a second time, a third time, a 10th time. You're always going to find and catch something new that you didn't the first time you listened to it. And a lot of the times you might put in all this effort and time into writing a flow or a verse or a lyric or a punchline or something, and you show it to people and, you know, it might just go over their heads, or they might not even really necessarily care, or they might not ever catch it, you know, the 30th time they listen to it, and that's okay. So again, it just goes back to, what are you writing it for? What are you writing that punchline for, that flow, that lyric? Is it for you or is it for other people? So I always just try to keep that in mind as well. So that's a little bit of insight into the process of coming up with a flow. But great question, thank you. All right, guys, well, that brings us to the end of the Q&A. I did my best to answer all the questions as thoroughly as I could. If not, let me know in the comments down below, or let me know what other questions you guys have that I didn't answer. And let me know if you guys want to see another video like this in the future. Like I said, let me know if you guys want to see maybe me do a live Q&A, whether it be on Instagram or TikTok or YouTube or Facebook or whatever. Again, it all just depends on you guys, on the demand, on the response that I get from this video. So if you guys want to see more content like this, you guys got to go ham on the like button, on the comments, share it, all that stuff. Once again, guys, thank you to everyone that's shown me support up to this point. With all my music, all my videos, it means a lot. I really appreciate it. Again, I wanted to do this video just to kind of branch out and incorporate some diversity into my content on my YouTube channel. So keep an eye open, look out for more videos like this coming in the future. I definitely want to experiment more and try different things as often as I can. But like I said, majority of this channel, it'll be mainly for my music and music videos and things of that nature, freestyles and stuff. But every once in a while, I'll try my best to do a video like this that's a little more insightful and a little more personable. That way you guys get a little more of my personality and stuff. So once again, thank you guys to everybody that watched the video. Like, subscribe, all that good stuff. And I'll see you guys again on the next one. Peace. What's up, guys? If you liked the video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, leave a comment down below, subscribe to the channel, turn on all notifications, and stay tuned for the next one. Peace.